my people, how you doing? Hope you're having a fantastic damn day. Welcome back to the channel. And for this week's Throwback Thursday, I'm very excited about it. We will be replicating Erik Ten Hag's, well, 4-2-3-1 or the 4-3-3 attack, depending on how you see it. We'll be replicating the Ajax 2018-2019 system that obviously they used to knock out the amazing Real Madrid, Juventus as well, and almost make it to the Champions League final in that year, which obviously they didn't. They lost to Tottenham. Spurs went on to lose to Liverpool, and the rest is history. But we'll be replicating that, as well as I'll be showing you guys how you can set up on the attacking side of things when obviously you have the ball in possession, and how you can look to try and get the best out of certain players in certain moments. Starting off with the formation. Now, I've gone with a 4-3-3 attack. I've dropped the two central midfielders into the DM positions because I think their instructions as a whole, that's more or less what you want out of them. So essentially it does create a 4-2-3-1. But again, you do play with wingers, not wide midfielders. So that's why I'm a bit puzzled with what to actually call it. But basically you have one goalkeeper, two centre-backs, two full-backs, two DMs, one attacking midfielder, two wingers, and then of course one striker. Now for the tactics under Erik Ten Hag, the tactical vision, I couldn't really decide whether they fit into a gegenpressing system, which they did very well, aggressively press the opposition at times, or if they fitted into more or less the tiki-taka system where it was very fluid, very free roaming, you could say. But I think a custom approach best suits what this team was all about and how they played football. They didn't really fit into a particular class or style that any tactical vision can offer you in the game FC24. So a custom, I think, best suits it. For the defensive style, pressing after loss of possession is essential. When they would lose the ball, they would be able to press and win the ball back very aggressively. You'll see here with the defensive setup of a width of being 25 as well as the depth being 90, more so the depth being 90, you're looking to try and pin the opposition back in their box, making sure that if you do turn the ball over, you have a lot of numbers in there in the half of the opposition to potentially throw men forward and win that ball back very aggressively and quickly. As for the team width, however, it is set to 25, a very compact unit at the back. Of course, you had the likes of Daley Blind, Matthijs de Ligt, Mazraoui, of course, and then Tagliafico as that left back. So a very nice compact unit. Of course, your wingers did track back and they do try and help prevent those crosses being whipped into the box. But more naturally, it is a somewhat widespread system. So you can definitely get to those wider regions and prevent those crosses from being fired in more times than not. And then other times you are very nice and compact. So you do prevent those through or those line breaking passes, I should say, those through balls. You can look to try and intercept and break up any potential offensive build-up play from the opposition. And then moving on to the offensive side of things, when you do have the ball and you are progressing it forward, the build-up play, I've gone with a balanced approach because Ajax themselves didn't really look to try and play quickly all the time or try and, slow things down consistently and just look after the ball. It was very much a mixed bag, and that's more or less what you're trying to create here, as well as the ability to play that long ball in behind. The likes of Daley Blind as well as de Ligt can definitely play those long balls into the forward line to try and get things going a bit quicker, if need be, trying to bypass the midfield as well as the opposition's midfield at times, looking for that quick transition ball forward. At times, they could obviously look after the ball, transition it quite slowly, progress it up the field quite nicely and effectively, and then look to try and score goals. But that's why I've gone with a balanced approach. It's a nice dynamic approach that you want to try and incorporate for all those aspects into this offensive build-up going forward. For the chance creation, I've gone with a possession-based system. Of course, Ten Hag, he likes to make sure that the ball was looked after, the way that his midfield worked and the way that they progressed it. The likes of Frenkie de Jong, of course, very much a possession-based player, not looking to spring those consistent long balls, trying to open up the defense of the opposition's defense all the time, looking to try and look after it, move it up the field quite effectively and swiftly at times, and then look to try and work it into the box with those little passing triangles in and around the attacking third. For the width, however, it is set to 50, a nice balanced approach, sometimes looking to work into those wider areas, but other times looking to try and keep it as central as can be. The likes of Donny van der Beek, Schöne, of course the likes of Frenkie de Jong, all very essential in that central area, and then you would have your wingers dropping into those central pockets as well, looking to try and join up with the attack more times than not. As for players in the box, however, I have set it to 8, and it does allow you to try and flood the box. More times than not, it would be one of your attacking wingers or your wider forwards, of course your striker and your number 10, and then every now and then maybe a fullback might enter the box to try and latch onto the end of one of those crosses. And that's more or less what you're trying to create with the high number being set to 8. For the corners and free kicks, as per always, I set it to 4. It just allows you to have a better opportunity to try and score one of those set piece opportunities. So starting off with the instructions, and we'll start off with the goalkeeper, as per always. The likes of Rudy / Andre Onana at the time. Of course, he is set to come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper. It goes without saying, Onana and anybody else that Ajax would throw in, they needed to be able to be a very modern day progressive goalkeeper, being able to play out from the back, start the offensive build-up play literally from the back, and then progress it forward. So of course you need a decent goalkeeper to do that, and as well as you are playing a very, very high line set to 90, so you do need a keeper to be able to claim those balls, rotate it back into play very effectively. And then of course, saving on crosses is set to come for crosses. You need him to be able to claim those aerial balls when they are whipped into the back line area. Moving slightly higher up the field though to Satulo as well as Hato, who would take up the roles of Dali Blind as well as Matthias de Ligt. Now both of them are set to be aggressive with their interceptions and then step out and impose themselves on the opposition at times, and more or less they do this with the very high line that they do try and implement throughout the course of the game. Very effective, might I say. Now moving out wide to our fullbacks, the likes of Wrench and Sosa, who will be playing the roles of Mazraoui as well as Tagliafico. So for Wrench, or Mazraoui I should say, join the attack as well as overlap, providing a lot of the width down the left and the right flank. Both of them are set to the same set of instructions as well. And then both of them are also set to step up and step out, impose themselves on the opposition. This does help quite well with the very high line that you will be playing. And it does help pin the opposition back in their own half, because if you do turn the ball over, your defenders know that they need to be very aggressive with trying to win it back, as well as your midfield at times. And as you can see here for Sosa, he's got the same set of instructions as well. So moving on into the midfield, our double pivot of Frenkie de Jong as well as Schöne. We'll start off with Frenkie de Jong, of course, the man who could pick up the ball and take it on a long, mazy run, creating many, many overloads throughout the course of the entirety of the field. A fantastic player with being able to collect the ball off the back line or maybe even the goalkeeper and progress it forward, whether it was a 40-yard pass, a 5-yard pass, a 40-yard run at times, a 5-yard run. It didn't matter. He was very, and he still is very, very good at doing so with that progressive style of football. But in order to replicate his behaviors and his traits, intercepting and cutting out passing lanes, that was his role, as well as what it would be for Schöne as well, trying to break up the play going forward. Stay back while attacking, and this helped him, get a bit deeper, allowing him to potentially start the offensive build-up play from the back as well, or assist in starting the build-up play from the back. Aggressive interceptions are set to be on form, as well as being the deep-lying playmaker, of course. That was his role in the team, like I say, collecting the ball and then progressing it forward, being that link between the defense and the midfield going forward. And then on the defensive side of things, not looking to try and drift into that left or that right-hand channel for either of your two DMs, looking to try and sit in front of the two centre-backs at times and then make sure that it's very hard for the opposition to try and make those passes through or potentially fit plays in between the lines and then create havoc for your team. So more or less sit in front of the back line, shield them at times as best as possible, as well as because their interceptions are set to aggressive, they'll look to try and win that ball back very, very aggressively when out of possession. And moving on to the likes of Schöne, his defensive behavior very similar to Frenkie de Jong, looking to try and intercept and break up the offensive build-up from the opposition. His attacking support though, even though he didn't really always do it, he did have the ability to get forward when needed. And that is set to having a balanced approach, so a bit more of a box-to-box player, but again, not so much always attacking, but again, you also want to try and give him the freedom to do so when need be. His interceptions also set to aggressive as well, working effortlessly to try and win that ball back as quick and as fast as possible. His positioning freedom, this is where more or less changes from Frenkie de Jong. He's just going to stick to position, so he can look to assist in the build-up play from the back, or potentially look to just, take up a position and potentially be a bit more of an open pass when need be. And then, of course, just like Frankie's position, he's going to look to try and cover the center, creating that box or that thick shield between the opposition's attack and, of course, the Ajax defense. Moving slightly up the field to the number 10 role, and of course, the Donny van der Beek role, a man who was fantastic in this Ajax system when it was like in its pomp, honestly. So his defensive support is set to basic, so sometimes having the ability to drop a bit deeper, link up quite effectively with the likes of Frenkie de Jong and Schöne, or having the ability to stay forward and be a bit more of an outlet when the ball was in possession. His support on crosses is set to get into the box, and this more or less does create that system of having the number 10 more frequently overlap the striker at times and take up a bit more of an advanced role going forward. Positioning freedom though is set to free roam. You want him popping up in the little half spaces, interchanging at times with certain players, and we will see with that more advanced attacking system how the free roam role comes into play. As for his interceptions, also still set to aggressive. Like I say, a very restless team when out of possession of the ball. They had to get that ball back as quick and as fast as possible. Now, moving on to our wingers, we've got the likes of Bergwijn and Forbes, obviously taking up the roles of Hakim Ziyech and David Neres. So they have the same set of instructions as well. So both of them having a basic defensive support, just like the number 10 role, but this time having a bit more ability to track back and help out the fullbacks when needed. Cutting inside and making sure that they were as narrow as possible to the number 10, and this did allow for a bit more interchangeability between the three just in behind the striker. And then of course come short, linking up quite effectively in those central areas with the midfield at times. And then aggressive interceptions were set to be on for them, as well as having a balanced approach for their crosses and the support on crosses, I should say. As you can see here, for the likes of Hakim Ziyech's role, very similar. As you can see here, all the same instructions as well. And then finally, we've got the likes of Dusan Tadic or slash Broby in the situation, very much playing as a false nine and was a winger put in that position, and he did a very, very good job. I think against Real Madrid in the second leg. Was it the second leg or was it the third? Was it the first? I'm not sure, but he was fantastic at the Bernabeu. Whichever game they played, first or second, it was at the Bernabeu. He was a man on a mission, fantastic, doing his thing, dictating the pace of play. And in order to try and get that out of him, having him drift wide into those central area, or into those wide areas, I should say, potentially pulling the opposition out of those central areas, opening up a bit more space for your wingers as well as your number 10 to try and work into, it is very, very effective. The attacking play and the attacking runs is set to false nine, so looking to sometimes drop off a bit more, allowing the number 10 to be a bit more advanced, linking up more effectively with your midfielders as well as your wingers around him. Very, very underrated performance and role for Dusan Tadic going forward. His interceptions, as per always, just like the rest of the team, is set to aggressive, trying to effortlessly win that ball back when out of possession. And then finally, the defensive support is set to come back on defense. And again, this goes quite well with trying to have that number 10 frequently overlap and make those advanced runs forward. So once you guys are a bit more settled into your game and the offense is coming quite naturally, I would suggest you take up a bit more of an advanced attacking structure, and that would be this right here, a 3-diamond leveled attacking phase of play, you could say. So of course the first diamond was the likes of Frenkie de Jong, Daley Blind and De Ligt, as well as your base of the midfield, which would potentially be the likes of Schöne or whoever you are playing in that role. Of course, Frenkie de Jong, not really a centre-back, but having the ability to collect the ball quite deep and then take those mazy runs. And you will need to do this more manually, of course. And then the second diamond would obviously be moving into the midfield, the likes of Schöne, Mazraoui, Tagliafico, and then of course your number 10 and Donny van der Beek. And then finally your last diamond, which was a very rotated, free roam, very fluid role of Van der Beek, Tadic, the likes of Ziyech, as well as Neres. Like, obviously, they would try and rotate. The likes of Neres would be playing as a striker, Tadic on the wing, and then the likes of Ziyech would be playing as the 10, and Van der Beek sometimes as the striker. And you're more or less going to see with the instructions how we can get that out of this team. So for the formation going forward, I've gone with a 3-4-3 diamond. There's no real changes to it, I would say. I've mainly just brought the two attacking wingers slightly more in, bringing them a bit more central to the striker and the number 10, and that helps with the interchangeability of the positions. But again, it's no real changes to it. It's one goalkeeper, 3 centre-backs, 1 DM, 2 wide midfielders, 1 attacking midfielder, 2 wingers, and then of course 1 striker. Now with the tactics going forward, tactical vision is still set to custom. There's no real changes to it. The defensive style is set to press after possession loss. Again, no real changes. The team width and depth is still the same. The offensive build-up this time, though, is set to slow build-up, so you aren't going to look to try and progress it too quickly through the lines and, you know, have your players bombing on forward. It's all about structure with this attacking unit going forward, so you want to try and look after the ball as best as possible, create those little diamonds, those little triangles in and around the opposition's half, and you will look to try and compact and press the opposition, squeeze them in their own half once you have this formation in full effect. The chance creation is set to possession just like the first phase, or the balanced formation, I could say. The width is set to a slightly wider width, not so balanced this time, 60. It allows a bit more space between the lines and a bit more space in the midfield, but again, no major changes to it. And then as for plays in the box, it's still set to 8, and then corners and free kicks, as per always, still set to 4. Of course, with the instructions going forward, the keeper is still set to the same set of instructions: come for crosses and be a sweeper keeper, more so now with a very attacking, forward-heavy lineup. Now, the first major change in the instructions comes to the likes of the Dali Blint as well as the Matthijs de Ligt role. Not being too aggressive with it or trying to step out, they are set to their base set of instructions, whereas the likes of Taylor, who of course is the Frenkie de Jong player, he is set to overlap, normal interceptions are set to be on form, and then of course step up. Now obviously I've gone with overlap because you want him taking up those slightly wider regions of the field, having the ball with him, progressing it forward, looking to try and assist and help out where he can in those wider sections of the field. And more or less overlap does get the best out of him. But what I will advise you guys do is, when building out from the goalkeeper and starting it going forward, get the ball into Taylor or Frenkie de Jong or whoever you are using the system with. Get them into get the ball into this player's possession and then progress it forward with a nice, strong manual run. You'll be replicating a very realistic Frenkie de Jong role. Moving slightly higher up into the midfield now, the likes of Schöne, the base of it, of course, looking to always be a handy man where he can. Cuts passing lanes, of course, looking to try and break up the opposition's offensive build-up. Dropping between the defenders. Now, this more or less will try and help and assist in creating a back four if your fullbacks are too far wide and you have turned the ball over, but more times than not, you are going to look to try and look after the ball as best as can be. Interceptions are set to aggressive, again, still, and then be the deep lying playmaker and cover the centre. Of course, with the likes of Frenkie de Jong taking up a third centre-back role, you would need the likes of Schöne to be able to collect the ball off the back line in certain moments and then progress it forward. And then moving out wide to our left and our right fullback slash midfielders, the likes of Sosa and Wrench slash Tagliafico and Mazraoui have the same roles. They are both set to and instructed to stay wide, holding a lot of the width in the team going forward. Getting in behind is essential, often overlapping the wingers, getting in behind the opposition's backline, collecting those passes in those wide regions, and then of course supplying either cutbacks or crosses into the danger areas. Their support on crosses is stay on the edge of the box, looking to try and be the extra man at times or trying to recycle possession where needed. And then normal interceptions are set to be on for them, as well as sticking to their position in that wider region of the field. As you can see here for the likes of Mazraoui, he's got the same set of instructions as well. Now this is where things get a bit more interesting. The number 10 roll forward is where you'll see a bit more fluidity in the side, a lot of interchanging pieces, and more or less creating a lot of confusion for the opposition at times. So the likes of Donny van der Beek, set to having a basic defensive support, looking to try and drop deeper when needed, looking to try and help the build-up play going forward. Support on crosses is also set to balance. You want him being able to get into the box at times, but because you have so many players rotating positions, you don't always want him making that advance run forward because it does mess up the fluidity of the side. So having him set to balance does help with that. Free roam is essential, just like with the previous set of instructions. Having him pop up in those little half spaces is more effective now because with the other players' instructions, they'll be pulling players out of positions, and hopefully your number 10 can operate in those wider, more open spaces. And then of course his aggressive interceptions is set to be on. Out wide to our wingers now, both of them are still set to the same set of instructions. Coming back on defense is essential. Of course, it's a very open attacking formation, so you do need certain players to track back when needed. Free roam is set to be on for both of them, of course, also having the ability to pop up in those little half spaces, taking up roles either on the left or the right flank if they are there. And then, of course, coming short, linking up very effectively with the likes of Frenkie de Jong, Schöne, of course, your number 10 and Donny van der Beek. And then aggressive interceptions are set to be on for them, as well as having a balanced approach for their crossing runs. You don't always want them in the box because it does take away the fluidity. You want them to have a bit more of a balanced approach at times. As you can see here, for the likes of Ziyech, same set of instructions as well. And then finally, we have got Tadic in this fantastic role form. Now, with the support runs, the first time it was set to having a bit more width to it, often looking to drift into those wider areas. With this, a bit more balance, having the ability to do so, or potentially having the ability to take up the central role, looking to latch onto those crosses fired into the box, or potentially those cutback opportunities. Playing as a false line, though, it still is essential. Aggressive interceptions is still on. And then, again, just like with the first balanced set of instructions, he is still going to be able to come back on defense, still allowing for sometimes Van der Beek to make those overlapping runs, getting into the box a bit more. So yes, my people, that is my version of Erik ten Hag's 2018-19 Ajax side. A fantastic, young, well-constructed, well-built team. I mean, they were fantastic. Honestly, they had superstars in their side. The likes of De Ligt and Frenkie de Jong have gone on to become potential global superstars. I know more so Frenkie de Jong. De Ligt has had quite a few injuries over these last few years, but nonetheless, massive potentials throughout the course of their careers, definitely. And just a fantastic team to watch. They destroyed Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. They took Cristiano Ronaldo's Juventus apart. They were a scuffed kick away from reaching the final of the Champions League. I can't remember who the Spurs player was that scored it. I can see his face. The Brazilian guy that left Spurs last season. Anyway, point is, they were a few seconds away from potentially, getting into the final and facing off against Liverpool. I would have loved to have seen what Ajax could have done versus Liverpool in that situation, honestly. But I guess we'll never know. But most importantly, my dudes, please hit that like button down below. Subscribe if you are new, please. I haven't said that, but if you are new, please subscribe. That'd be fan-damn-tastic. We are on the road to 3,000 subscribers. But yes, thank you very much for watching and getting to this point in the video. I'm out.